So the first thing we're going to do is actually set up a project to test out Sequelize. And I'm going to do an npm init. Yes. I'll do a git init. And I'm going to npm install. And for the moment, I'm eventually going to use Express. But for the moment, I'm just going to end up installing Sequelize. And I also have to have Postgres. Because again, Sequelize is a library that sits on top of another database driver, and Postgres is actually going to be making the database calls. And I'm going to install these guys. Let me actually touch a file. This is going to be my data layer. And for the moment, I'm just going to work directly off of this data layer. In fact, I'm going to do nodemon db.js to get that to run. And these guys are going to install. So I've got my nodemon running here. And what I'm going to end up doing is, let's also not forget, if I do my git.status, I'll see that I've got my node modules folder. And I like to do a quick shortcut, which is just to echo the node modules into a git ignore. And this will actually create the git ignore if it doesn't exist. If not, it'll just end up adding to it. So now if I do a git.status, I'll see my node modules folder is not there. And I could just do a quick commit. So let's go ahead and set up Sequelize. I'm going to open up my editor. And what I'm going to do here is in my DB folder, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Sequelize. Now, I bring this in with a capital. And the reason why is I'm using this as a constructor. So here's our Sequelize that I'm bringing in here. What do I mean that I'm using it as a constructor? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my Sequelize connection. Sometimes you'll see this will be called client. You could call it whatever you want to, but I'm newing up Sequelize. And all I have to tell Sequelize is where the database is that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to use, here I've got to put in basically a connection string, and I'm using Postgres. So Postgres : / localhost is where Postgres is running. And I'm just going to call this my new DB. I don't think I have something with my new DB, but we'll end up finding out. I'm going to have two models, and what I'm going to do here is start setting these up by specifying product, and this is the way that you define a model. And the models are going to actually determine what our queries look like. And I'm going to call this product. I'm going to keep this empty for now. We'll end up filling it in a bit. And I'm going to say category. And one of the things that I'm going to be able to do is that I'm going to actually create the tables within this database. And this is a very, very powerful feature of Sequelize. And the way that I'm going to end up doing that is I'm going to tell my connection to sync. And I'm going to put another object here. So this is a configuration object. And I'm going to say force true. And what this does is that even if the tables exist, it'll end up wiping them out and recreating them. Now, this is not something that you want to do in a production database, obviously, but when you're getting yourself set up, it's perfectly fine to do. And let's just see what happens here. If we go back to our console, we'll have an error that says, hey, look, this database doesn't exist. That's true. So let's actually go and create the database and see if we can get this error to go away. So I'm going to do create database. I know it's a silly name, but we'll go with it anyway, my new DB. And I'm going to go back here, and since nodemon's not aware that I ended up making this change, let's go back and rerun this. And we'll actually see that this is basically creating our tables. It's actually dropping the tables if they exist and recreating them. And it's actually interesting, too, because we'll see that even though we ended up calling this model category, the table is pluralized to categories. And even though we called it product, the table is pluralized to products. And just to show one other thing here, let's actually connect to my new DB. And if we do -d to see our databases here, /d, we'll see that, to see our tables, we'll see that we have It's actually two tables and two sequences. And these sequences are there because of we're using integers for our primary IDs. And if we end up looking at our categories or at our products, we'll see that they have a primary key of integer, and they're using this for the primary keys. We're going to switch this up to use GUIDs as our primary keys, and we'll see these sequences end up going away. But the important thing here is that we were able to go and actually create our two tables, the same code that we had to manually end up doing here, we were able to do automatically just by going and saying that we wanted to create this, define within our connection, this product and this category. And just one other thing here, in terms of convention, we bring this in as an S because we're using it as a capital S because we're using this as a constructor. We don't have to, but it just is commonly how it's done. The other thing is that these are models, and we bring these in also as capitals as well to sort of delineate them. So that's something that you want to end up doing. Your models start out with, I always forget if it's Pascal or camel case. I think it's Pascal case, where you start off with a capital here and the rest is lowercase. But this is something that you'll end up commonly seeing, and this just in terms of recognizing things by seeing that capital, it's a little bit more obvious that it is a model rather than just a variable that you're setting up. Let's dig deeper in a little bit in terms of looking at how we create individual fields within our database.